Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Caroline Colas, and I'm the Senior Director of Health and Wellness at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. Today on our Positive Psychology Hour, we are going to be discussing the mental endurance game of long-term resilience with Gary Redfeather Keil. To say the pandemic has created an uncomfortable reality for us in 2020 may be the biggest understatement of them all, but it has also created new opportunities to learn and to thrive. We're going to be joined by endurance athlete and neuropharmacologist, such an amazing combination, Gary Redfeather, for a conversation today about safely and successfully pushing the limits of your endurance and how people do that, not only here, but around the world. Learn to channel your inner strength in order to pace yourself and create mini goals and activate your hope circuitry. Define what success means to you by building your resilience in your way. And we're going to define and cross new finish lines. That's our hope. So a little bit about Gary. He runs the Postgraduate Clinical Leadership Education and Research Program at the De Montfort University in Leicester, England, as well as numerous leader development programs in the US. Gary's teaching, research, and professional practices weave a deep understanding of neuroplasticity, which I want to talk to you about today, Gary. It's going to be great, which is essentially the rewiring of the brain and the nervous system. And he weaves that into the development of chronic pain and post-traumatic states, holistic wellness therapies, medical mindfulness, nutrition, and organizational development. Helping individuals and organizations increases their chance of a future of post-traumatic growth versus post-traumatic PTSD. What's PTSD stand for, Gary, again? Post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And Ironman triathlete Gary was inspired by Tal Ben-Shahar to see how he could cultivate his mind-body resiliency, leading to multiple ultramarathons, including a COVID-19 lockdown virtual version of John O'Groats to Land's End 825-mile run. Welcome to the call, Gary. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'm going to put your spotlight on too. Did I get you? All right, let me see if I can unmute you, or you might have to. Hang on. Oh, you know what? I'm going to ask you to unmute, and I think I have to make you a co-host. That's why. Give me 1 second. My bad. The endurance game. Hang on. Yeah. Let's see. If I make you a co-host, I think you can. There we go. Now try and unmute.
There we go.
Woohoo!
Can you hear me? Yay. So one of the biggest things about resiliency is flexibility. So when things like this happen, you can go, I can panic, or I can just go, eventually we'll work the unmute button out.
You know,
So,
that reminds me of a good friend of mine. I used to be a professional dancer, and a good friend of mine, the videographer didn't show up. And I said, Ed, what do we do? He says, you know what I do in these kind of situations? He said, there's just 2 words. And I said, what are they? I want to know. He said, oh, well.
well,
And you move on.
wise words. Mine would be 3 words. Where's the chocolate? But yeah, that's just, yeah.
Awesome.
So thank you, Caroline. I'm really happy to be here again, and I'm so appreciative of everyone who was on the last time. Had some fun conversations, follow up, and I'm very excited to be here today because, as you introduced the topic and as we were talking earlier, yeah, to say that our lives are kind of in a state that we've never really been in. Very few of us were around in 1918, 1917 when the last big pandemic really hit. So this is a first go around for most of us on this scale, and quite honestly, we're not done with it. Whatever it is, it's things are getting better. We are in this for the long haul, and so I think this is a very relevant topic to talk about because the mental resiliency is definitely tied to our collective ability to get through this. And so I'm really appreciative that we have this chance to talk and share and explore some things that quite honestly people can do without leaving their home, and many of us can't leave our homes. And so it's like, okay, what can we do here and now to really help get us through? And so like I said, I'm happy to be with you.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited to be talking to you. I always love talking to you because I learned so much. Speaking of neuroplasticity, I
Mm,
feel like you challenge your perspective, challenges my brain, and makes me think of things in new and different ways. And I wanted to just
mm.
start with what is endurance? Like, let's just start like what. And I want to ask that in the chat of everybody. Like, what does
Yep.
endurance mean to you, everyone?
I
So
would.
that we just start with that and get a little bit of a frame for our conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, so maybe a different way of asking that is what helps build endurance or what helps build resiliency? What do you think the factors are that
I'll
that
write
that
that.
determine resiliency in a particular person? Because some things you might be surprised that people think might exist, which may not actually help out. So,
Okay, strength, being able to stay the course, is endurance,
okay.
says Donna. Um, let's see, breaking things or situations. Oh, we're getting a lot down into smaller components, says
Mm,
Maureen.
mm,
Rachel talks about being positive, the importance of being positive, and Kimberly, just keep showing up.
mm.
Lois says, inner strength, I've always had it. Beautiful. Hannah says, there's a reason I'm going through this. And Ellen, reframe my perspective. Sandy, having the right growth mindset. Joanne says, friends. Anne, positivity. Mimi, patience, not taking it personally, having a routine, shifting perspective, and discovering new things. Don't take things so personally and just persist. A lot of things about persisting and showing up and routine. Are they on to something? Are smart?
Brilliant. So I would love to focus on all of these positives after recognizing that people did not actually mention things like despair and grief and going into dark places. So it's interesting that the list is actually very positive, which are correct, not even in question that these are factors. But once we start looking at mental resiliency, physical resiliency, true resilience, we need to realize that part of resilience, part of long-term resilience is absolutely allowing ourselves to go into dark places, allowing ourselves to go into the deepest, darkest place where some days the best thing that we can do is to rally ourselves to go back into bed and stay the rest of the day. So denial, I'll just throw one more thing out there, is denial is actually a factor of resiliency. If, and this is where the science really comes into play, if it's metered out, if it's dosed, if you will, to use medical terms, if it's dosed in the right way, denial is actually a positive indicator of resiliency.
Beautiful. We're going to
Which,
talk a little bit more
yeah,
about that. I wanted to
yeah,
let you know what people are saying in the
yeah.
chat too, because we've always had derailments in life, but how do we handle them? That's the key. Someone else said, JC says, being grateful, allow all feelings as valid, says Anne. Beautiful. And Christine said, my mother always encouraged me to try difficult things, even if success didn't seem likely. I often failed, but also succeeded. You learn that you can survive this and will be stronger for trying. And Ellen said, yesterday I felt blue, but it passed faster than it normally would because of my attitude. Denial, I don't really understand. Can you explain this? And Nancy said, I love it. Have a good therapist.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So to address the lack of understanding on denial, it's actually a very difficult thing to go, wait a second here. If you deny something is happening, you're avoiding addressing it, right? So denial is by definition going, no, it doesn't exist. Well, what the research shows is that um, very similar to exposing somebody to too much information. um, when we have a trauma, it can be too much for us to handle in the moment. And so denial is a natural response. It's kind of like the freeze aspect of fight or flight. So everyone hears about fight or flight as the normal reaction to stress, but there's a third component called freeze. Freezing is where you can imagine an animal is completely overwhelmed with what's going on, and they can't do anything but just basically shut down. That's a beautiful natural response to being overwhelmed by the trauma. So denial is a parallel to freezing until we can rally enough within us and around us so that we can start to address what is happening. And so denial is actually one of these things that is kind of counterintuitive, and it's counterintuitive because it can be so abused and so overused that it doesn't help you out. And so it's like any medicine. Every medicine is a poison, period. The converse of that is every poison has the potential to be a medicine. Right dosage, right administration, those types of things. And so when we start talking about resiliency, it's, yeah, like Ann said, denial is putting the problem aside for a moment. Yes, it's going, I can't handle this right now. It's too much. And you go, okay. Okay. So when I'm working with chronic pain patients or people who've gone through a traumatic experience, if I ask them, are you ready to address the issue? And they say no, I'm like, okay, okay. The worst thing I could do is try to force them to have a conversation about something that's too much. And it's like, I don't feel I can. Okay. Okay. What do you feel you can talk about? And so somebody said, just trying something, doing a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit. That's what we do to get somebody through something that is too overwhelming. It's breaking it down. Somebody said breaking it down into smaller parts. That's actually how you run 100 miles, by the way. Most people go, there's no way I could run 100 miles. I go, yeah, you sure you can. You can move your body a mile. Yes, most people can move their body a mile. You just simply repeat it 99 times. But how you do it would affect how you actually get through it. If you start jogging and you jog a mile and you go, I feel great, you jog another one, you go, I feel great. Are you going to be saying the same thing at mile 38 or 40 something? Probably not. And so this is, yeah, it's all of this is best discussed around what I call dosage. And so dosage means how much, but also how quickly. And so
Mm.
every medicine, if it's dosed down, can go from toxic to beneficial. If it's dosed up too much, it can go from beneficial to toxic. That's the same thing with our reaction to trauma is if we try to face it head on in the moment full bore, it may be too much for us. Where if we
Is
just
it
take a step
fair?
back.
Is
Yeah.
it fair to say two things I was thinking of? One, it feels like the way you're describing denial is like the great pause. In other
I
words,
love
it
this.
helps us hit the pause button,
Yes.
right? And just take a moment. And as we know, Viktor Frankl talks about that. Like in every moment, we have a moment to pause, and then we have a
Yes.
choice. So it feels like denial is almost nature's way of giving us a moment to pause. And yes, someone said, yeah, but if a deer freezes and they're in the headlights, they're going to get hit. True, but sometimes when something is overwhelming, we do need that pause
Mhm.
to just be able to absorb it. I think about the shock of when Maria Serrat talked about when her brother was diagnosed with cancer, right? That it was so shocking to him. The news was so shocking that they couldn't even tell their kids for like 3 weeks because they just
Yeah.
had to absorb it,
Yeah.
almost digest it and get used to this incredible idea, right? And so denial helped them in that moment. And then the second thing I thought about was when we were talking about dosing, it's almost like medicine, or we can think of our habits or think as stimulants. Do you know what I mean? Stimulation,
Mhm.
right? So what are we doing to stimulate the nervous system,
Yes.
the whole system, whether it's with our exercise, whether it's with our thoughts, whether it's with our food? And I think sometimes, I know I have been guilty of this, I haven't thought about, wait a second, it's like the ocean. If it's too much, I need to maybe not swim today, right?
Yes.
I need to take a smaller, I can look at it, I can listen to the ocean, I can walk by the ocean. And then there are days when I can swim in it,
Yeah. So
right?
a key thing to me is actually recognizing that when we are in the headlights, and so to use the deer in the headlights as an example, none of these are universals that fit in every single instance. And so if we're a deer in the headlight and we see that the car is far enough away, it's the stupidest thing we can do is freeze. Because if we've got time to move out of the way, it might benefit us to move out of the way. So and we move out of the way. And so in certain instances, freeze is not the best thing. Well, in certain instances, to act immediately is the worst thing. And so I think the last time we chatted, I used the mindset of a cosmic starter's gun, where you're just kind of walking along and all of a sudden you're in a race and everyone's running, you're in a 100-mile race and the gun goes off and you're like, what do I do? Sometimes the worst thing you can do is start running, because you could be running in the wrong direction. If the finish line is that way and everyone's running this way, that's their race. If your race is over there, you don't go with the herd. You stop and you go, what race am I in? Oh, I'm in this race. Oh, the finish line is over there. I think I'll run that way. And so I love that people are catching that there are definitely instances where something is not appropriate or it's not the best response. And that's absolutely true. So sometimes the best response is to act, and sometimes the best response is not to act. Every single time we experience something, we have the moment to do exactly what Viktor Frankl said. That pause. Just stop and go, do I need to act or not? No. Okay. What do I need to do? And then this is where we start to look at things holistically and go, I don't have the mental resources to get me through this. I don't feel that I can do this alone. So relationships, part of the spire, the whole being institute talks about, that's the R of the spire. It's how do I cultivate the relationships that I haven't in the past to help get me through this? The emotions. Emotions are wonderful until they're not. If we don't have any emotions, we're apathetic and we don't do anything. If we have too much passion and too much emotion, we're crazy. So 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 where am I in my emotions? Am I not feeling enough or am I feeling way too much? You can adjust. And the rest of the spire is just as true. Spirituality is the very first one. A lot of people hit traumas and they feel a direct connection with something greater than themselves. That's beautiful. And other people have traumas happen and they have existential crises.
And can you talk about stimulation? In other words, what we need to be stimulated, right? It's how we interact with our life force, and yet someone was saying that they preferred the word pause instead of freeze because freeze implies stuckness, and yet inertia is part of life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And exerting force or resistance even is part of life. In order for something to move, you have to there's a resistance to get it to go, right? As a dancer, I used to remember I wasn't surprised by the resistance, in other words, because in order to get a still object moving, you need to apply resistance to it.
You do. Yep. And I really appreciate a personal preference. And so when people say things like, I prefer a word like this, that's where I go, wonderful. Somebody else might prefer a different word. It's just a preference. And so I think when I read stuff like this, I'm like, awesome. Call it whatever it is that you would like. The more important thing is just the recognition, the awareness that there is a benefit and maybe a harm to everything we do. And that's the yin yang in yoga. That's the light darkness. It's everything. It's holistic. But the sensation and the movement and all of that, I think, is critical, because things like COVID have forced us to get away from some of our routines. And so Phoebe shared, I think it was with you and me, Caroline, a statistic that she found just the other day, and it was basically, so the Gallup polling company looked at Americans, and it says the percentage of Americans who say that they are getting less exercise now than before the start of the pandemic is 38%. So nearly 4 out of every 10 people are getting less exercise. 14% say they're getting more. Okay, so there's a very small percentage, but the rest say that their activity of levels hasn't changed. But then you have to look at what their levels were before the pandemic. Most people do not get enough physical activity, period. So for some people, it's much worse. And so you go, okay, what can you do? What can you do in this moment? So things like start an exercise regimen. You go, is that really what you should do? And if you want to start something and you haven't done something in decades, start with just moving your feet around, moving your body around in your chair. Doing this for 10 minutes is a dance. You just do this for 10 minutes. Guess what? You just burned a lot more calories than you have done probably in weeks or months before. Revel in that. Revel in the small step. And then eventually maybe you'll get out of your chair and do it. There's no
Mm.
rush to this. Matter of fact, when you rush, that's when the body goes, I don't like what you're doing. It's too much. It's that big
Mm.
dose. The body doesn't like big changes. The body loves little changes though, because that's what we dig. So if we just simply go, so yes, beautiful, and celebrate these little things. These are the things that you go, I can do this, and just focus on that. Don't focus on the can't do's, because focusing on the can't do's takes that hope meter in us and it shifts it down to the lowest notch. When we go, ooh, I'm doing this and this feels good. Beautiful. Stick with that. Don't compare yourself and don't compare yourself to other people. That's a
I
that's a
love
key
that.
thing. That's a key thing in ultra marathoning, by the way, is to do a 100 miler or to do other things that I've done. The best thing you can do is never react to somebody who's passing you along the course. Because
Mm.
if you do, that's ego. If somebody passes you and you and you speed up, that's your ego speeding up. And so to take the ego out of it is to just go, I'm in this for me. I don't really care about anyone else. I want to get to that 100-mile mark and feel good about doing it. It has nothing to do with anyone else. And so comparisonitis is a rampant disease that prevents resiliency from happening.
Yeah, it's
Comparison.
like
Yeah.
activating the hope circuitry, right? I was
Yes. Yeah.
thinking of,
Mm,
GPA goals
mm,
and pathways and agency, right?
yeah.
Setting those micro mini
Yeah.
goals and then choosing the path and then having the confidence and the agency to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it my way. And
Yeah.
that activates the hope circuitry. And I was thinking about what you were saying about when we started the conversation about how no one really talked about denial and kind of what I'm going to call the tough stuff. Um, and that how, in order for hope to be present, fear needs to be there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, they go.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the other questions is how can you not compare yourself to others because your brain does it automatically? That's partially true. We can't not react to our environment. I mean, so that's absolutely true. But how many people go into a road rage when somebody accidentally cuts them off in traffic? the, just because you react to somebody, getting too close to your space doesn't mean you go into road rage. So this is a learned behavior. Road rage is absolutely 100% a learned behavior. The reaction to somebody swerving in your path, if you will, is not. There's a big difference between the two. And so how can you not compare yourself, or how you can't not. The key thing is it benefiting you? And so to compare yourself with anyone is to just simply look around you and go, I am me, they are them. That's a comparison. If they're running, I'm running. They passed me. I don't care. So we do compare ourselves to everyone all the time. It's what do we do with that information that makes it a resiliency factor or something that crushes us? Okay. The other thing that somebody asked was, what do you mean not to compare yourself with yourself? It's the images we have of what we should be doing or what we should be capable of is called shoulding all over ourselves. You should not should all over yourself, because I should be a nice person. I should be able to get over this. My father died 3 years ago and I should stop grieving. Really? Why? Why compare yourself to that image? Why not just simply go, I'm sad today, even though it's been 3 years? Just be it. Just be sad and recognize that grief is actually a part of the healing process. Just like anything is part of a healing process. It's okay, but the comparing ourselves with ourselves is actually a very tough one, because we tend to go, I should be stronger. I shouldn't be so angry. Well, maybe that's an aspiration. Okay, if that's an aspiration, turn it into, I am on my way toward being less angry. Wonderful. I am on my way to being happier. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Positive. Yeah.
Is this all really a reaction to trying to feel safe? In other words, like
Yeah.
what I'm talking about,
Absolutely.
right?
And so this is one of the key things I think I would ask people to consider, is that the well, I would have, okay, so let's try this a different way. So if the folks on the line or people watching the recording would think of the most cantankerous person in their lives, the most prickly barbed, this person I'm talking about, that they just, you can't
That's
even imagine yourself in the same room with them, right?
mm,
You flush just thinking of them, okay? So if you think of that person, your reaction to them is completely yours. They can be a cantankerous person, they can be a royal pain in the whatever. Your reaction to them is owned by you. And if you go, yeah, but I can't not react in an angry way because, ooh, they did so many bad things. It's just like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. It's like that road rage thing. If you have road rage, you can actually train yourself by a practice to go, I can't imagine what that person is going through. I can't imagine how their life can be so terrible that this is how they're reacting to driving. It's theirs, so don't take anything personally, as something somebody wrote earlier. We can't not take things personally when somebody does something to us. Well, we can certainly look at it and go, from a compassionate standpoint, I can't imagine what they're going through to act that poorly, whatever it is. All of these, though, are predicated on our own survival. And so when they do happen, this is where to understand the brain really helps out, I think, is we always act in survival mode. Always. When we're happy, when we're sad, it doesn't really matter, because our survival is so inbred to us, we can't not do certain things. We can't not flinch away from a loud noise. That's a survival thing. The rest of the stuff we can start to train ourselves out of, because our association with angry people and to yell back at angry people, that's a learned behavior. We don't have to yell back to people who are yelling at us. Matter of fact, my own practice is to sit with angry people and watch my blood pressure go down, my heart rate go down. The more compassionate I am with somebody who is in that state, the more my blood pressure and my pulse rate comes down, the more theirs does too. There's science that shows that we have this capacity. We can escalate a bad situation, or we can de-escalate it through peace, through compassion. And so, but these are, the more reactive things are definitely driven by survival.
so it seems like one of the keys in endurance in this time and making it through this pandemic and being more resilient is to do just what you're talking about. It almost reminds me of Daniel Siegel's work when he says, name it to tame it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like that. The reaction that I have a reaction is just part of my biology,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Again, that pause and the choice of what I do next in that moment. And then as you're talking about setting goals and crossing a new finish line is what we talked about. It's like, wait a second, my finish line is, like you were saying, I'm going to be with angry people, but my finish line is going to be to see if my heart rate and my blood pressure and my
Yeah.
calm and ease
Yeah.
is increased, and my compassion, right? My heart rate is
Yes.
going to go down and my compassion is going to increase. So we can
And
set up those little mini goals for ourselves.
so the best way that we can do this is to set the goals up for ourselves, and that's one thing. The better way to do this is to form a loving alliance with somebody to help us out. And so we are absolutely social creatures. And I think the one thing that has come out of the pandemic that I have learned most, but I hope that other people will as well, is that we should not be socially distancing in this pandemic. No, we should be physically distancing, but we should be socially supporting. And so here's the power of words. And so when the experts started coming out and saying, "Oh, we have to social distance so that we don't get sick," I'm like, no, we need to physically distance ourselves. We need to mask up. We need to have the physical barriers so that we don't transmit to each other. But we need social connection more now than ever. Definitely more now than ever. And so to recognize that is to recognize that we are social creatures. And so the resiliency thing, so like what you were just getting around to, is if we cultivate these little challenges in our life. Like somebody said, my mother used to encourage me to try something and possibly fail. That's a beautiful thing if it's set up properly. If it's not set up properly, a failure can lead to a negative association. And then another failure can lead to another negative association. But if they're set up wonderful as, I'm going to stretch myself and see if I can do it. And it doesn't happen, and you go, well, it didn't happen that time. What do I need to change so that I can actually better my chances of succeeding? Well, then you try it again. You go, oh, it didn't happen again, but I was closer. And then you try it a third time. So failure itself is actually the key to a lot of resiliency transformations. It's in my parlance in kind of the pharmacy world and medicine world, is you're giving yourself little inoculations and then little booster shots. And so your vaccine, if you will, your true vaccine is to allow yourself to kind of put yourself out there and know that you're okay. And if you start to feel unsafe, you pull back. That's your kind of your vaccine. And then you do your booster shot is then you try it again and pull back. And then stretch yourself a little bit more and then pull back. But each time you're doing this, it's a celebration. It's that you did this. And then you get to celebrate. And then you do it again. And then you get to celebrate. And then eventually you'll start to see that your reach goes farther and farther and farther. And your flexibility gets greater and greater and greater. And your strength gets more and more and more until you're like one resilient monster out there just going, I'm awesome. Yep. But it's through those practices. If we do those practices together in a wonderful relationship with the right a mixture of spirituality and physicality and intellect, what an amazing concoction. This is the ultimate vaccine cocktail, is when we have people who are with us who are experimenting as well, because one of us is going to stumble and one of us is going to go into a dark place. And if we have other people standing around going, I get it, go there, it's okay, I'll be here, I'm not going to fix anything, there's nothing for me to fix, I am always here for you. People come out of that and they've got somebody there. If we do this alone, it's kind of like that social distancing thing. It's like we're not designed to do that. We're designed to be socially connected, absolutely a community, because we're family after all of us. We're one big family called the human race, so let's support each other while we're doing this.
We have a question in the chat. What if you have compassion, hope, loving attitude, and someone you are dealing with, friend or family, doesn't have any of that, emotionally shut down?
Yeah. So the best thing we can do in that situation is not to try to convince them of anything, because their mind drives their behavior. Okay, our beliefs underlie everything. So if they don't believe that they have compassion, they don't believe that they can do anything but act out in anger, whatever it is, the reality is that's the way their system is designed. And so to try to force them through something is not the way to do it. The best way to do it is, in military terms, called a flank attack. So you don't address the issues head on. It's kind of like convincing a 2-year-old to do something. You will never do that. But if you convince them it was their idea, that's the only thing they'll do, right? And so if somebody is in our world that just doesn't, have compassion, they just don't simply have that, you just go, okay, I, I, I I'll just simply supply what I have. And if they get it or they don't take it personally. So if we're kind to somebody and we don't get kindness reciprocated back to us, and that impacts us in a negative way, that's our fault, not theirs. Because we can give. If there's no expectation of reciprocity, getting something in return, I don't care. I have infinite compassion. I have infinite kindness because I determine that. You don't. No one determines my level of compassion but me. So we give. And if the person comes to a better place, great. If they don't, it's their life.
Mhm.
It really is their life. And that's that, anyone who is a parent, which I am, knows that eventually if your child's going to ride a bike, you have to let them ride the bike. That means they're going to fall. That means they may get hurt. But once they start to ride that bike, then you just let them go. And so I'm just reading here that, the person that
Nancy said,
just,
thank
yeah.
you. She needed to hear that to help with the situation with someone. I wanted to go back to something that you said about reevaluating and reassessing, and how Don Tomasula talks about that in Learned Hopefulness, that we do need to reevaluate how we're doing, that's part of the process, we set kind of an intention or a goal, or we even move towards something we want to do. Like it could be that small, like what do I want today? Like, gosh, I want to cross the room, or I want to sit in a different chair. Sometimes those micro goals
Yes.
or those micro moments can help us activate, desire, right?
Yes.
Especially if we're home alone. But then we have to say, well, I had wanted to go to some of us had travel plans,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I was supposed to go to New Zealand. That's not happening, right? So we have to reevaluate that. That's part of this endurance game too, and then say, what can I be satisfied with, or savor, or move towards in this moment?
Yeah. So the reevaluation is critical for actually a couple different reasons. The first one is when we take the pause to reevaluate what's happening, it flexes muscles that kind of build up. And so reevaluation is to reintroduce value. So just look at the word. Reevaluate means to which do something again. Evalue means to introduce value into it. So when we reevaluate something, we reintroduce value into it. Okay. The critical part of that is value. We're bringing something positive back into the situation, even if our response is it hasn't changed. Okay, it's still a reevaluation. It hasn't changed. Okay, if it hasn't changed, then we're not doing the right things to help it change, because the outcome of every system is designed by the system, right? And so systems don't give results without being designed to give the exact result. Any engineer will tell you that. Any biologist will tell you that as well. And so if we're not getting the right result, it's because the system isn't designed to give a different result. And you go, okay, how do I need to change things? That's a reevaluation. And when we do it with a curious learner mindset, we get away from familiarity breeding discontent, because that particular phrase is so true. When we become supposedly so familiar with something, we become discontent. Not that we don't like it, it's just that we expect it. Then the value of it starts to decrease over time because it's a given, and anything that's a given is not valued. So how do we do this? We do this by coming back every moment to go, is this the most enjoyable way of doing something? It might be the most efficient, but is it the most enjoyable? And if it is really efficient, how can I make it more enjoyable? And then the other question can be, is this the most efficient way of something that I'm enjoying? Can I actually make it more efficient so that I can enjoy it more? It so any situation that's good can be looked at in a, how can I make this better? Any situation that's not can be looked at with the same curious mindset to go, I don't think I like that. If I like it, I'll keep doing what I'm doing. If I don't like it, I can change something. And so you get to the place where you just have a curious mindset and you basically play, but play is purposeful. Play is not some kind of chaotic random type of thing. Play actually has, for anyone who's looked into the science of play, play is very purposeful. Okay. There's a question that I want to address here because I think this comes into here. And so the person is asking pragmatically, if you've got a situation where somebody is not moving, so they are basically an immovable force in something that really needs to have movement. Again, if you try to force it, the physics will tell you that the more you try to push something away, the more that it will resist you. Okay. So Buddhism and other philosophies go be the water. So if you hit an immovable force and you're solid and you're immovable, you do this. But if you hit an immovable force and you're liquid, your water, you bend and shape around it. And you, by doing that, you can actually pull something along with you. Instead of trying to push it, do you see how that would be a pull if you're kind of like a rock or a pebble in a river? You can try to push it down, or you can just kind of bring it along with you. Having conversations that are non-emotionally charged is critical. So to just simply go, okay, you don't want to do this particular thing. Can you help me understand why? So if somebody really doesn't want to do something, try to figure out why. Because then you'll have an insight to probably a fear. And again, the person is probably not willing to do something because it's a fear, but that fear is based on a survival threat. Perceived or real, imaginary or not, it doesn't matter because imaginary pain, according to some people, can be just as traumatic as real pain. People who have had real pains go, no, it's not the same thing, but it doesn't really matter. It's perception does create a certain level of reality. And so, okay, so if their perception is they can't do something because there's a threat, acknowledge it and go, I hear that. Is there something that we can do to help get you away from that? Is there a way that we can, so it's a helping thing. It's not I'm going to force you to do things. It's I want to make all of our situation better. And I believe we can do that. And so again, this might not sound like it's resiliency, but this is exactly what is embedded in resiliency research. It's people who hit an immovable force just simply take a step back and go, if I keep banging my head against this, is it going to move or am I going to damage my head in the process? You step back and you go, it's kind of an immovable force. Okay, so if I can't bang it out of the way, how can I get around it? How can I change it? What would I need to do? And so it's these are wonderful conversations that are starts to lots more conversations. They're not designed to be quick fixes, but nothing worthwhile is a quick fix.
I wanted to make sure that we also, gave a shout out to Kim, who was talking about curiosity earlier. I find that curiosity helps take away some of the sting of emotion in expanding my comfort zone. And we really are talking about increasing our capacity, right? When we add value or we reevaluate something, then we're appreciating it. But we're also talking about, okay, what's my capacity? Endurance to me seems like I'm going to increase my capacity for it all, right? For the ability to encompass and hold and stand in noticing the good while acknowledging all around me, acknowledging the difficult, acknowledging the dark, acknowledging the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And I love that Kim was sort of highlighting what you were saying too about curiosity. And I find it profound to hear what you're saying, which is like, if things exist, if a system or a person is designed a particular way, and we are attempting to change them, we're going to struggle there.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And every system is good enough. And so systems don't continue to exist if they're not good enough. If there's not some kind of self-sustaining part to a system, it will by nature break down. Okay. So if somebody in our life, or ourselves for that matter, and I like to start within me, if I am holding on to a bad habit, okay, there's just something that, I get triggered or I have a bad habit, there's some kind of reward for me to keep that habit. Okay. And so there's a guy named Charles Duhigg who created something called the habit triad. It's a triangle that just basically says there's always a cue to start a routine that then leads to a reward. That's the habit triad. So there's a cue that starts a behavior that leads to a reward. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Every single human behavior can be described that way. And anger is a beautiful one to think about, because people, quote unquote, get triggered to become angry. Okay, well, that's a cue. Okay. So you become angry. What's the reward of becoming angry? Survival. Okay. You might hurt people in the process. You might feel bad about it, but you're still surviving. So the reward is survival. If you don't like that in yourself, you go, can I change the cue? Sometimes we can. So I don't put myself in situations that I know I'm going to be triggered into an angry state. So we change the cue, or we change the behavior. And so even though we're cued to go into it, we change the behavior. But the key thing is there always has to be a reward. And so when we go to change our own behaviors or the behaviors of others, if it's not tied to a reward, that cycle will not continue. And so stopping cigarette smoking, stopping something else. We know that there's cues that lead to the behavior. The reward is feeling good. Okay, if you have a desire to smoke, instead of smoking, come up with something else, but you have to have that feel good thing. If you don't replace this behavior with something that makes you feel good, you're going to go back to smoking or eating or whatever it is. And so we get to play with, and this is where play and curiosity comes in. We get to play around with all three of those. But we shouldn't play with all three at once necessarily, because that might be too much. Just play with one in a little way, see how it works. Does it affect that continual triangle, that continual cycle? And if the answer is no, you go, okay, what else can I do to start to change it a little bit more? And maybe you'll break that bad cycle and start to develop a good one. Our good behaviors are just as strong as our bad behaviors. Or put differently, our bad behaviors are just as strong as our good behaviors. The body doesn't care. It just goes, okay, you want me to do that? Okay. But
Yeah.
once we recognize it's not necessarily beneficial, then we can go, oh, I want it to go this way instead of that way. The mind and the body will go, okay, I'll go that way with you. That's fine. It's being aware of what we're doing. Are we being supportive of others? Are we being nurturing? Are we really sowing the seeds and cultivating the life that we want? Because if the answer is no, our reaction should be, okay, okay, it is what it is. I can change it. And here's how I'm going to try. I'm going to play.
Yeah, I have two
Yeah.
questions for you.
Yeah.
One is, it feels like what you're saying is neuroplasticity is neutral.
It is. Well, no, it's actually biased toward the negative. So
Okay.
if anything, we are biased toward the negative. So there's a guy named Rick Hansen who describes the mind as Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. So, Teflon hits and it just slides right off. Well, there's very little survivalistic advantage to being a nice person. Now we're talking evolutionary scales. We're not talking anything else, but evolutionarily, it's actually better to be aggressive and survive. And so pain is another one that it's better for us to sense pain and create other reactions to non-painful things that might threaten us than it is to find ourselves in multiple pain situations and not learn. So neuroplasticity, the brain is actually hardwired to remember the traumas more than remember the good. But
Yeah.
just because they're
Okay.
naturally wired that way doesn't mean they have to go down that way.
Right. Again, choice. Then
Yes.
the other thing I wanted to ask you in relationship to resistance and also into exercise or moving, not even exercise, but moving. I was thinking about Kelly McGonigal's work and her book, The Joy of Movement. And she actually said that the brain if you sit there, let's say you're sitting, it sort of says, yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay sitting here. But then when you start moving, it's like, oh, wow, this feels good. I'm going to continue doing it, so that there's actually, don't believe your brain is what she's saying,
Yeah.
right? That
Oh,
you have to kind of, again, there's another way working with denial a little bit, that you have to know that once you have to get up, get past that resistance, or that message that says to yourself, I'm fine just sitting here. I don't know what anybody else is talking about, this moving stuff. And then when you actually move, your brain says, wow, this is
yeah.
pretty great.
And this
Let's keep doing it.
and this is where the brain is agnostic. So the brain doesn't differentiate okay from okay. Because we are literally okay when we're sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours. We are. We are okay. We are surviving. That's a different level of survival than really exploring the world and getting out and seeing things and interacting with people. We are naturally created to be moving 18 hours a day. How many of us live a life where we naturally move? Let's go on the lower scale, 12 hours per day. How many of us really do wake up and are constantly moving 12 hours per day? Okay, we're designed to do that because 200,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, even a couple hundred years ago, we didn't have lights, we didn't have anything. We went to bed when the sun went down and we got up when the sun came up. And we mostly were outside foraging for our food, but interacting with people, seeing new things, learning new things. And we have insulated and isolated ourselves from nature by our modern world, right? If we can reconnect with that, that's when we start to re-energize. That's when the natural parts of life actually come back into play. So this is stimulating because I get to interact with you. I get to see you. We get to laugh. We get to share. It's not the same as if we were live together. It's good. It's not the best. And so, okay, if it's good, it's good. Supplement that with much better. Get outside. Go listen to a bird. Feel the sunshine, feel the air, move your body, because 12 hours a day is really what we're designed to be doing, is movement.
It seems
And
like
when
what
the
you're
bo-
talking about is vitality too.
and when the
In
bo-
other
yeah, and
words,
when the body doesn't move, the brain doesn't get as much nutrient.
okay. I'm
And
sorry,
and and,
I
and vice
interrupted
versa.
you. Go ahead.
Yeah, and vice versa. And so the mind body is a unit. There is no mental health versus physical health.
Mm.
They go hand in hand, because you can't have mental health without physical health. And you can't have physical health, true physical health, without proper mental health, period.
And then to go on to the extreme, have you found as an endurance athlete, when you had that challenge with tall, before you did that, do you feel like you have more capacity because you've increased your physical capacity in your mind body connection? And how does that work in the brain? Do you know what I mean? In other words,
It
I
does.
hear all the time, and I felt it in myself, gosh, I've been working out consistently. I have more mental stamina. I have
Yeah.
more emotional stamina because I've been more physical.
Yeah. Well, we know that the brain cannot sit passive when the body moves. Okay. As the body stays stationary, the brain still works, but it works in very limited ways. And so, the act of sitting doesn't require a lot of input. Matter of fact, your body goes quiet pretty much across the board as you sit for longer than about 10 minutes. Okay, all of your proprioceptors are the things that activate in your skin when you feel something, vibration or whatever. They go quiet after you've sat for about 10 minutes. And so the input really to your brain diminishes if you don't move. If you're continuously moving, all of those proprioceptors, all of those things are, you're continuously having input to the brain, and that's nutrient. That's actually food for your brain. And so your capacity actually increases. It's not so much the overall capacity, because your brain is your brain, but it's how active are those connections? How much are they talking with something else? Just like we are social creatures, our brain is a social thing. It wants to associate laughter with food. It wants to associate movement with warmth. It wants to associate, because these are things that we know when we are with somebody that brings us joy, and we're feeding our bodies something that's nutritious, that's when our brain goes, yes, I love this. Festivals, ceremonies, all of these are kind of the penultimate in medication. It combines movement and sociality and religion and ritual, and that's why it's so powerful. When we don't have that in those different ways, our system really does do this. And it does kind of deflate is how I think of it. It does. So the more we can engage, the more we can plug in, usually the better. It's not that we have to force ourselves into situations that we don't like, because that doesn't help out. But it's this engagement with life that creates the resiliency and and allows us to build up these capacities. And so I haven't been an ultra marathoner my entire life. Tal challenged me, and I rose to the challenge to do it. But I'm an 800-meter runner. I would run twice around the lap, the track, and I would be done. The thought of two more to do a mile was like, no way, no way. And this John O'Groats run that I did, that's basically the tip of Scotland down to the tip of England, and that's 825 miles. But I didn't do it in one go. I didn't just start running like I'm a crazy person. It went, how am I going to do this? How would I get through that? You don't do it by running. You do it by slow, methodical, beautiful ritual. My running is my moving meditation. You don't have to do this to meditate. You can move. You can dance. Dancing is a meditation. It's a moving meditation. Yoga, same thing. Yeah. So if it's okay, I did want to address one final thing. Is
Sure.
there's this one comment about if there's a person who won't forgive you, okay, well, what do you do in that instance? And it's like, again, you can't force anyone to forgive you. What you can do is love them anyway, because in the end, their lack of forgiveness, it only impacts you if you allow it. If you don't allow it and you go, my compassion for somebody else is greater than their current inability to forgive or to do whatever, it's okay. That's what Viktor Frankl talks about in Man's Search for Meaning. Is in the end, we have absolute 100% control of ourselves and our reaction. Period. Everything else, we can't. It's yeah. So what are the books and resources? So I would love to share a list of resources. So instead of trying to list off, you can't see my bookshelf, but there's lots of resources out there that I'd love to share.
Awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
then can we just talk about what did Phoebe call it? And your friend at in
Oh,
C2,
Sisu. Yes,
Sisu.
Sisu. Yes, and this is yeah. So for
You're
those of you who
close.
don't know, it's spelled Sisu, and Sisu is a Finnish, from people from Finland, not a Finnish. Yeah, it's a mental way of looking at life through the lens of adversity, but adversity as a growth opportunity to become stronger. And so Sisu, for those of you who, well, I mean, everyone can imagine, I think, what life is like in Finland in the winter, where you don't see the sun at all for weeks or if not months on end. And so you're in complete darkness. That's a pretty miserable time because it's cold. It's really cold. And so you can imagine shutting down in that environment. Well, the converse during the summertime is you don't really go to sleep because the sun is up 24 hours a day. So either one of those extremes can create a very hard existence. Sisu is the acceptance of what is happening and going, how do I actually develop my grit? Because grit is different than resilience, right? Grit is tenacity. Grit is you just get it done. You go, okay, that works in some situations, but not all. So acceptance is another thing. Compassion is another thing. Reservation, not being reserved in a shut down sort of way, but just going, I'm reserved because if I'm going to do 100-mile run, I need to conserve my energy. I reserve my exuberance, whatever it is. And so it's this amazing mixture of so many different things in a 4-letter word called sisu. And it's just basically their approach going, life is going to happen. And so this researcher friend of mine who we talked about, her name is Amelia Lati. She and I have chatted in the past about resilience and that. And I shared at one point, and I'll share it with you to end things on, is my favorite quote goes along the lines of something like this. I don't remember if I shared it last time, but it's expecting life to treat you well because you're a good person is like expecting a raging bull not to gorge you because you're a vegetarian. So when a bull is going to rage, a bull is going to rage, right? Life is going to be full of ups and downs. John Kabat-Zinn, the mastermind of mindfulness-based stress reduction, wrote a book called The Full Catastrophe Life. In order to fully live life is to embrace everything. Everything, the light, the dark, the hard, the soft, the supposed good, the supposed bad. It's all beautiful. And that's what makes a full life, is to go, what's next? I don't know, but I can enjoy it and I can get through it. So that's what I would end on.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I just wanted to congratulate Rachel. She signed up for the SIP program, which is a certificate in whole being psychology. I felt that doing the SIP, I was just finished my 9-month program. I just graduated. And talk about doing a wonderful thing for 9 months, right? And the next cohort starts in February, and learning all of those tools. What an amazing gift that was.
I would put a plug in and say, if you want to change your life, that's one way. Absolutely. I was part of the first program, and then I was a teaching assistant during the second year. And those two experiences absolutely changed my world. Not in question.
Awesome. And I'm just putting a link in the chat. If you decide to do that, we've created a virtual giving circle in which the Whole Being Institute will donate part of your tuition back to the JCC. They're just so amazing. Thank you, Gary. Gosh, I could talk to you forever.
We've got a long life to live to do this.
Let's hope
keep
so.
doing it.
And let's keep final words just about endurance and defining the path of our own way, in our own way. It sounds like it's about choosing and choice.
Sounds like Tal's book, which I would highly recommend to everyone. Choose the life you want.
Excellent. All right. Be well, everyone. Take care. Thank you.